In 2007, inside a cold construction site in Dublin, Ireland, an 18-year-old apprentice plumber was staring down at a set of old pipes. His workday started at 6 a.m. in the morning, beginning with an hour-long walk to a motorway just to catch a ride out to the countryside. Then he spent 12 hours a day doing heavy manual labor, and he was sitting at the bottom of the workplace ladder. He hated every single second of it. And then during one rainy lunch break, he was sitting in his car by himself and listening to some music when suddenly he experienced a moment of mental clarity. He realized that this routine was just not working. It was killing his spirit. So he packed up his tools and he walked off the job site and told his parents that that's it. He's not returning to work. His parents were pretty pissed. Plumbing was a secure, guaranteed safety net in a working class community. And with him suddenly quitting, it created a rift inside his household and in his family. And then one afternoon, the tension got so bad, it literally exploded into a fight. It was in the living room, and it was between this young man and his own father, and the fight got pretty intense. And at one point, the teenager actually picked his dad up with a double leg takedown and slammed him onto the floor, and then he mounted him. And while he was looking down at his dad, he told him that he would be a self-made millionaire through fighting by the time he's 25, and his father literally just laughed in his face. Neither of them knew his son was hardwired in his thinking and completely laser focused. And even though he signed up for government welfare checks, he also stepped into a gym every day and prepared to become the biggest star in combat sports history. Welcome to the Mantle, and today we honor Conor McGregor. Before Conor became the highest paid athlete in combat sports history, he grew up in the tough neighborhood of Crumlin, and he was surviving on a weekly check of 180 euros. He spent years training under the strict guidance of 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐽 at the Straight Blast gym, and the conditions at this gym weren't great, but Conor lacked money and couldn't really even get basic transport, so his long-term girlfriend, Dee Devlin, drove him to training sessions in her broken down car while scraping together cash for his athletic meals. Conor developed an absolute obsession with movement and the human anatomy. He spent hours a day studying combat mechanics and learning to manipulate balance, leverage, and timing. Inside the octagon, his distance management and wide karate stance led to devastating counter-striking mechanics and really revolutionized the stand-up game. He ran through the European regional circuit, capturing 2 simultaneous titles in Cage Warriors, and then the UFC president, Dana White, traveled to Dublin and heard the local community talking about an unstoppable force. He signed Conor without ever seeing him fight in person, so the stage was officially set for them to see an unprecedented commercial explosion. The actual record of Conor's UFC rise is a masterclass in psychological warfare. He's a great shit talker and mechanical execution. He tore through the featherweight division, even predicting the exact round and method of his victory. And in December of 2015, he stepped into the cage against Jose Aldo, a champion who had remained undefeated for a decade. And it took Conor exactly 13 seconds to perfectly counter Aldo and knock him out and become the undisputed world champion. But he didn't stop there. He moved up a weight class and completely dismantled Eddie Alvarez at Madison Square Garden and became the first 2-division champion in UFC history. And by 26, his guarantee to his father had come true. He was a multi-millionaire, and eventually he secured a staggering $100 million payday when he boxed Floyd Mayweather in 2017. But as his financial status jumped into the stratosphere, his personal life started to collapse. The broke apprentice plumber from Dublin was suddenly surrounded by sycophants, infinite wealth, and a 24-hour media circus. So he began slipping into a dark spiral of severe substance abuse. Public records and internal camp reports showed a pattern of heavy multi-day alcohol and drug binges that completely derailed his athleticism. He would show up to training camps out of shape, messed up on chemical stimulants, and at the time, he also owned his own whiskey brand, so he was drinking a lot of alcohol. He suffered a brutal submission and lost to his rival, Khabib, followed by back-to-back stoppage defeats against Dustin Poirier. And in July of 2021, during their trilogy bout, he snapped his tibia entirely in half, forcing him out of the arena on a stretcher, and he had fallen from the absolute peak of the sport into a deep abyss of physical ruin and addiction. For 5 years, the sports world just assumed that Conor, his career was over, and he had become an aging celebrity living on a super yacht, floating through an endless cycle of booze and cocaine, abuse rumors, and legal battles. But tonight, in July of 2026, the notorious Conor McGregor returns to the arena. He successfully completed a rigorous multi-rehabilitation program. He cleared a system and signed the contract to headline UFC 329 in Las Vegas against Max Holloway. He returns with a score to settle with his own identity. And he said to the press that he needed to look into the mirror and prove to himself that the hunter that walked off the plumbing site was still alive. Hope you enjoyed that story. If you did, please leave us a like and subscribe. And if you have a story or know of a story that we should cover, we would love to hear it. Leave it in the comments. We read every one. And as always, I'll see you in the next episode.